Well, when I was young, I think I attended pretty average schools, public elementary, middle school, high school. So I think that I had generally positive school experiences, but nothing particularly unusual. My parents, I think, played a strongly supportive role. I'm doing nothing remotely similar to what either of them have worked on in their life. But my parents did play, I think, an extremely supportive role in that they always really took the time to listen to the things that I was interested in. And just that action of encouraging me by listening to the things that I was interested in, I think, was a key thing in developing my interest in science.
Had they gone to college?
Yes, both did. Both did. My mom was a school teacher, and my dad, though, worked as a general contractor. But for me, a switch was turned on right around the beginning of junior high, actually. And from that time forward, I really developed an intense interest in science. This is a funny story, and I've taken kind of a wandering path to the point that I'm at now, and I could describe that for you if you'd like. So starting out in junior high, a couple of things. I have always loved the outdoors and nature. I've always been interested in science, and I think the first goal that I remember having scientifically as a junior higher was in nuclear physics. As odd a thing as that sounds, when you watch these programs on PBS like NOVA and see physicists playing around with particle accelerators, I thought, well, that sounds great. And so I ended up doing something totally unrelated. I don't think being the smartest kid in the class is necessarily the most important thing for being a scientist, though. I was always a good student, but in my experience now, some of the people that I know that are the most successful scientists certainly are bright people, but they have a tremendous work ethic and they're persistent. They really work at their goals, and they don't like taking no for an answer. They really keep at it, and I think that's just as important. As I had mentioned, I've always really been interested in nature and the outdoors, and forever, two of my favorite programs have been Nature and Nova on PBS, and they still are. And so things like that, I think, began to develop an interest in science. My own area, I am a neurotoxicologist and a professor here at Texas A&M, though I grew up on the beach in San Diego as a surfer kid. So how does a surfer kid from San Diego become a neurotoxicologist and a professor? And it was a bit of a wandering journey. And so I would say to young people that are thinking about their careers, if you don't know exactly what you want to do yet, that's okay. There's hope. And I'm a prime example of that. Going through high school, I had a great biology teacher that definitely inspired me in that area. In college, I started out really interested in engineering, and ended up ultimately switching into chemistry and biochemistry, getting more and more into looking at living systems. And that continued on in graduate school when I think I was able to combine my interest in environmental things with my interest in basic biology and science. And that's how I hit in the field of toxicology. I'll show a book here because most people haven't heard of toxicology, but it, as the title here suggests, it is the science of poisons. And historically it's kind of funny because toxicologists, if I were working as one 500 years ago, I would essentially be a paid poisoner. But of course now it's evolved a little bit, and there are some famous toxicology-related quotes. If you've ever studied World War II, you certainly know who Winston Churchill is. He was at a dinner party one night with a woman named Lady Astor, and they did not have a good relationship, and she said to him at this dinner party, "Sir, if I was your husband, I would poison your drink." And he said in reply, "Madam, if I was your husband, I would drink it." And so this is the history of toxicology, but now it is really the study of the adverse effects of environmental things, certainly poisons among them, on living systems. And my own area of interest particularly is how that can lead to the development of human disease. In college, I began working in a research lab in biochemistry, again studying aspects of basic cell biology. And though I liked that very much, I felt it needed an application. And I was more and more interested in the medical side of things. And I hit on toxicology kind of almost by accident, but it really blended these elements of things having to do with the environment, with medicine, and also with basic biology, which was the area that I was studying. And so being able to look at environmental influences in human disease was of great interest to me, and that's how I got into toxicology. And now I would say on the more forefront of this field of science is how one looks at gene-environment interactions. So how does our environment, combined with our individual genetic makeup, result in different patterns of human disease? Yes, I have been published, and that's really the name of the game. When you're in academic science, you must publish. I mean, everyone's heard the publish or perish phrase, and it's true. One of the things, so I myself am interested in Parkinson's disease, and that's the subject of my own research. During my training, my postdoctoral work, I began studying the brain and how different cell types in the brain are more or less susceptible to different types of environmental stresses or exposures. And one of the interesting things I did discover during my postdoctoral work, this is leading up to my professorship now, was that one of the critical support cells of the brain, so everybody knows we have nerve cells in the brain, well, those are fed and supported by many other cells, and these don't all behave differently. Surprisingly, these support cells in different parts of the brain can be very differently sensitive to various environmental stresses and toxicants. And so this is one of the things I discovered in my postdoctoral work. That idea of how these critical support cells in the brain are affected in disease I've carried into my own laboratory, and now my own students are pursuing these projects. But I think it will be of importance, particularly in diseases of the brain like Parkinson's, because it's now understood that it's not just the nerve cell that's affected. These cells again are surrounded and fed by these supporting cells, and so it's more and more appreciated that things that go wrong with the support network certainly then affect the nerve cell. And so I think down the road this will hopefully open up new therapeutic avenues aimed at protecting the neuron by strengthening its supporting environment, so to speak. Changes that I would really like to see are new therapeutic strategies for Parkinson's disease, because right now the big question is, why does it happen? It's still not understood. And so I'm really trying to pursue how cell-cell interactions in the brain lead to the disease state. And I focus on mainly the support cells, because these can be pathologically activated to where they actually, rather than helping their associated nerve cells, they injure them. And that's the focus of my own research program. How and why are these critical support cells turned on in this negative way to where they injure the nerve cells? And I think as a key outcome, I would really hope that this would result in new ways to develop new medicines and drugs to treat this disease. A career in science at a university where you are in an academic environment, it gives you the freedom to ask the kind of questions that you're interested in, and that's a very great reward to be able to work on something that you want to work on. I think there are many reasons. If you like asking questions, if you're interested in science, if you like playing around with expensive gadgets in the lab, then it can be a very rewarding career. And again, one that really gives you the freedom to pursue the things that you're genuinely interested in, to ask questions, and then go on and pursue the answers to those questions, and hopefully contribute something to society by discovering things that have not been previously known. I teach graduate students primarily, and teaching is critical in science because you have to pass on what you've learned to the next generation of scientists coming up. And we all know that science and technology are producing amazing changes in our society. And the exciting thing is that we are just on the cusp of a new era of discovery. The tools that we have to do science are getting so powerful that even from a few years ago to now, the differences are incredible. The rate at which new things are being discovered is increasing. Things like the completion of the Human Genome Project, for example, which is the code, our genetic code, so to speak. That puzzle has now been solved in terms of we can read off the entire sequence of human DNA that makes up all of our chromosomes. So we're now discovering all the genes that are present within us. And so things like that, for example, are opening just new horizons for research. I love mountain sports, and I love the ocean. So I grew up on the coast in San Diego, surfing and kayaking. I did my graduate work in Colorado and spent a lot of time in the mountains. I love to snowboard. It's definitely one of my passions. Go and talk to your science teachers. They're a fantastic resource that you see probably every day. They could get you started into going to the library, going to appropriate areas on the internet to find out more about the scientific areas that you are interested in. Certainly, they could also help you contact somebody such as myself, a professor at a university who might be working in the area that you want to work in. And I can guarantee you any professor would love to speak to young people about science. We need bright young minds entering science because the people coming up now, the students that are now in junior high, are going to be the scientists and the professors one day, and they will be pushing back the frontiers and pushing back the horizons of our knowledge in ways that we probably can't even quite envision yet. And so we desperately need new minds coming into science for that reason, also because science can be very misunderstood in the public eye. And so the more people that we have who really understand it, it offers more possibilities for science to do good in the realm of our society.